Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Jeff Foundation's virtual webinar series. My name is Danielle Edwards. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at Jeff Foundation. I've been part of the organization for almost 5 years now. I'm going to just give it a few more seconds to let some attendees join on, and then we'll kick things off. You don't have to stay.
And anyone would be helpful. And then it helps you at the end to talk to somebody and decompress after such a long day. Bring snacks. Hangry is a real word. I'm pretty sure it was added to the dictionary. Snacks for you, snacks for him, snacks for everybody. And toys, iPads, headphones, books, loveys, anything that is a distraction, because 6 hours is long for anyone. Also, we live in Louisiana and we travel out of state for white specialty care. So a lot of our tests are not covered. Actually, none of the visits are covered by insurance. So we get our tests done at home. That may not work for everybody, but it actually makes the day a little bit shorter. So we are able to get everything done at home, and we send those notes up to the hospital so they'll have them beforehand. So it's more of a discussion when we get there, and it does chop a day off of the visit out of state. I also recommend bringing a notebook and pen. So many times I've forgotten to do that. And then I'm like trying to write on anything that they have, just so I can make sure I have all my notes. I also recommend bringing all of your ADHD meds or any kind of afternoon meds. Wyatt, I've been very forthcoming to our community. He's got a lot of the behavior, ADHD, anxiety, parts of Duchenne. And so he's on morning and afternoon meds for that. God forbid I would forget the afternoon meds and we have the rest of an appointment to go to. So try not to forget that, because you'll be kicking yourself later on. And any kind of testing anxiety, like Wyatt has a lot of anxiety before MRIs, and we've figured that out. Unfortunately, as the more he does them, the worse it gets. So he's completely opposite. And so we've now gotten to where he can take something to take the edge off before. Don't forget that if you have an MRI. And another thing that we've learned is try not to make that flight home if you're going out of state on the same day. Like, we have been running to the airport, we have missed flights. It's just not worth it. If you can just keep that night, your child's exhausted, everybody's exhausted, and it's just a whole setup to be in the airport for a total meltdown. So if you can just stay that extra night, it eases a lot of the stress for you and him. So those are pretty much my clinic ideas to help make that day a little better. But now for clinical trials. Wyatt has been in 3 clinical trials in the past 6 years. He's currently in one now that started during COVID. So we've been traveling through the whole pandemic. We also had his study end right before the pandemic. So it's kind of been a lot of different things going on. He's also traveled annually for 10 years for a research study. So we've also learned a lot of tricks of the trade doing all of these things. First off, trials are hard for all of you, for everyone in the family, your son, your grandma, everybody's worried, everybody's hoping this happens. And so it's hard for everyone. There's lots of time lost during travel. You're losing time at work, time at school, missing baseball games, missing all different kinds of things. And you just have to realize that clinical trials are important for our kids, and that, if it's not us, who's going to do this? So even though it's really hard, I highly, I'm very pro science and think it's something that most of us need to do. But here are some anxiety producing thoughts that I've had. As Erica said, you got to look at the bad before you can realize how to make it better. So many questions that go through our heads before and when you're thinking about getting into a trial. I wrote them down so I didn't forget. Will he fit the criteria? Can he get up from the floor fast enough, or can he do it slow enough? The criteria is always different. It's a double-edged sword sometimes. Will he fall during that 6-minute walk test? Why did they use that endpoint anyway? It's so dreadful. Will this medicine hurt him? How long before we know if he's in it or if he's not in it? How do I tell him if he's in it or if he's not in it, and tell him he's not a failure if he didn't get in it? What if he does get in it and then he doesn't want to do the test? As he's gotten older, we've really talked about it a lot more beforehand. And as they're little, it's really hard to say you have to sit down and have all these labs drawn, or take this disgusting medicine, or lay and do this MRI. But those are just of all the anxiety producing things to be in a trial that you kind of have to be ready to address, because besides all the questions Erica said we have to ask, those just regular normal questions of how is this going to affect my life going to, that you think about. So besides the clinic visit questions I had talked about before, here's some other questions I thought of to make sure you go and kind of make sure you have all your questions answered by the clinical trial site. Understand the medication that you're planning to put your kid on if they get in this trial. Know what the side effects are. How long is it expected to last? Is there a placebo? If there's a placebo, how long is that placebo? If he gets in the trial, does that disqualify him from other trials? Because now there are trials that you can't be in once you take that medication. What tests is your child going to be expected to complete? Muscle biopsies, some surgeries are still in these trials, MRIs, labs, the physical therapy test, a respiratory test. How often are these long visits going to be? And then most trials, Erica can tell you, show you a timeline. It tells you when everything is. And really, when you look at it, it looks like, oh, that's okay. That won't take too long. Wrong. These things are long. And we've learned, especially our trials with MRIs, split it into 2 days. Ask if you can split it into 2 days. And I know everybody can't take all this time from work or school, but you'll be happy you did if you can, because just those other tests are really hard to expect your 6 or 10 or 20-year-old to go through. They're tired. Just think of their normal day, how tired they are. And then you add the stress of a clinical trial and all the tests. And then I think it's something that we don't really talk about is when you're traveling, you're eating out a lot, and there's planning for travel and flights and all of those things, and it's expensive. Some trials pay out of pocket ahead of time for you to do these things, and they'll plan and pay for your hotel and airline ticket and things like that. But some pay reimburse after. That's expensive. And so I think it's just something you need to take into consideration so you can plan for it. Most of them either give you a stipend card or they reimburse you, but just to have that in your head that you may be coming out of pocket, and just be ready for those things. But lastly, I recommend go in with an open mind with all of your questions as much as you can. You will always have questions, pray that you have a really good clinical coordinator. Wyatt has had the same one for 2 different trials, and it's amazing the difference than a friend of mine has had where she's had 6 coordinators in one trial. So I just hope that kind of helps. I know it was a lot, but these days are long, and the little bits that you can kind of help get yourself prepared, the better it is, because you know, clinical trials are important, and that's having our boys in it is really the only way that we'll be able to find a cure for them. So I thank Erica for helping us out and getting these trials, and Jet for having us on. So Danielle, I'm kicking it over to you.
All right. Thank you guys both so much for those fantastic presentations. I think right now we'll start opening up for questions if anybody has any. I will start going though, just because I have so many myself. I guess, you know, Erica, you kind of touched on this a bit, but what are some things that clinics can start filling, you know, in their waiting room or making it a little bit more, you know, homier for families?
Yeah. So we've done a couple things. So I should say that we have our clinic, and then we've grown so much as a lab that our lab is actually separate than our clinic. So we're a little unique in that our lab is separate. So what we've done in our lab is we created like a little kid corner is what we've named it. I don't know what you want to name it, but it has like a couple of toys, like play trucks, and we have a drawer with some markers and washable markers, might I add, and then coloring books. We definitely take a poll of what prizes are the coolest, and iPads. iPads are tricky because I think you kind of feel how the parent is with iPads, because iPads, I think, or screen time can either be a positive or a negative. Some kids are able to just like put it down and then go to a next task. I think you need to know the child, because other times, like if I was to take it away from, I'll use my personal experience, my 2-year-old, if I take away the phone, it's just like, you know, you get that bored flop tantrum where they're just like stiff. So you kind of have to like use judgment there on if that's something. I think too is that we put up our kids' artwork if they give it to us. So we have a little wall of the artwork that they've drawn us, and they see it. And then if they share pictures with us and they're okay, we have a little bulletin board of all of like our kiddos doing things. I think one of the most important things is, I think I like to bring science and people together. I know that sounds kind of silly. Now, when we have boys that are graduating high school and they send me their high school graduation announcement, I ask if it's okay that I put it up. And they say yes, you know, because I think it's important for them, the 6-year-olds, to see, oh my gosh, look at, he graduated high school. And now we have people going to college, and I'm putting that up. And we have one member that's on the marching band and plays the trumpet. And like, these are things that should be like, I think, I can't say, right? I don't have Duchenne. I can't say, look at this great accomplishment. But our boys won this, they got second in the nation in their power soccer team. And they were so proud, and they sent us their trophy picture, you know, and we asked if we could hang it up, and that's cool, you know, like, why not share that? So I do think that I would encourage labs to kind of mix the science and the personal touch, because I don't know, do you guys have pictures of your family in your home, or do you just have like the paintings from, you know, Target? It's kind of a mix, right?
Absolutely. And what are some things that you provide to your patients in your clinic, you know, to take home with you? You guys, you know, give a cheat sheet or, you know, books or things like that?
So we have toys, prizes. You know, before COVID, we did this really cool thing, and we'd go to our local community, and I just give it to my staff. It's kind of like what you said, Jessica, is that you have the same coordinator for 2 years, and you can see that when you have that longevity of staff, how much they care, you know, that it's more than a job, right? You kind of build this relationship. And so my staff actually reached out to local community places like the zoo and our local ice cream shop, and we got all these coupons for free things. So that way, like, families, when they came, we gave them a little welcome pack of like, hey, here's some like zoo things and some ice cream stuff, and like here's some passes, so it's not out of pocket, but they could go and try and do some fun stuff. I think obviously for right now, it's a little bit tough for us to put that spin, but we're kind of coming up with some new ideas for hotel room fun. So I think that's something fun for sites to do, is to think of something like Jessica said, is it's a lot. Flying on an airplane and doing these long visits are a lot. And then I could just imagine families going to a hotel room and having them to entertain your kids. That's a lot. So then what can sites do that are a little bit extra, right? That even if it's a Play-Doh that like entertains them for 15 minutes and then it goes in the garbage, right? That's 15 minutes that mom or dad has some freedom to just like, oh, let me decompress for a second. So I definitely think it would be nice if sites did that. Jessica, when you were talking, I actually thought of something that I always tell my families to do, is sign up for miles and those hotel points, because some of my families have gone on family vacations that are really cool on their miles. And I'm like, yay! Like, it's kind of like you earn points for your job, right? Like, you did all this work and now you get to go to Disneyland with your entire family paid for, you know, Wyatt's hard work of going through a clinical trial. So then you're acknowledging his hard work, right? You did this, and then your family's getting this reward. Like, and so families sign up for the mileage, do it at the hotels and everything. But we fly a lot. Make it worth it.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Erica, sorry.
I was just going to say, Jessica also saw, I read your blog. It was great, by the way, or I don't know if it's a blog, but I read it. And you also said, and I think it's important to let the airlines know kind of their check-in requirements early of whatever needs, like if there's a service dog or any type of specialty equipment or medication. I think that was just such a great piece of advice that I forgot to kind of say kudos to you, because that is great, because families need to know that. Or like what kind of transportation if they are in a powered chair or something like that, because it can get tricky. So you might need to actually make sure you put that requirement in before you go, so you're not getting that extra anxiety, right?
And now to travel with a service dog, you have extra paperwork to fill out. It's a blessing and a curse, because there were so many dogs traveling, but now there's an actual form that they are asking for. So put that on your list if you have a service dog.
Jessica, going to that, do you fly the same airlines? Do you stick to a certain airline? Like, what does that routine look like for you guys?
When we were picking out the trials, we actually kind of look for the place that has a direct flight. We love Southwest. Southwest has been the best that we travel, because one, you get to pre-board. We have a service dog, so he gets to lay in the front. And they've just been really great with us. We have thousands of points because we fly them back and forth from New Orleans to Florida. So I highly recommend Southwest. We've flown others, and it's just very nerve-wracking as a parent when you're flying, and we just have a little small manual chair, but to fly with one of those big thousands of dollars chairs, I just can't fathom yet the stress that my community must go through when you're doing it, because it's hard enough and worried enough about our little chair that we have and getting thrown under a plane. So Southwest, knock on wood, has been great for us, and I highly recommend them.
Our families like Southwest too. I guess they've had like the same like flight crew before, because they get so like used to it, and they become like flight attendant for the day, and like they'll come back with all this Southwest swag. So I mean, you're on one side, I'll say I'm on the other side of the state or the United States, and so it's like kind of like, wow, they really are at least for Sacramento and for your areas, they definitely are making it a very happy kind of community centered. Yeah.
What about some of the hotels? Do you stay in the same hotel? Do you call ahead as well? Ensuring again, like those accommodations that you need are there?
I kind of like to stick with the same hotel. Every once in a while, we kind of journey off, but the best ones have free breakfast, obviously. Um, and then we've even found one, the Drury Inn has these kickback hours, so they even have free cocktails and some dinners. So we try to get that figured out, and we make sure to tell our travel agent that we would like the handicap accessible room. So that's already on there, and you're not like trying to go in there and they're like, oh no, we already have somebody in there. And make sure all those little things are on the reservations. And most of the time you can see them. And your car. If you have a service dog, bring a sheet to kind of cover the car. You know, like we ask for a little bit of a bigger car than just your regular standard so you can fit everything. You know, initially, especially on those first visits, the travel agent doesn't know you. And so luckily, as you kind of go along, they know you and they can kind of remind you of things. But we look for the ones that are closest so you don't have to leave at the crack of dawn to get to whichever the clinic or the clinical trial site. And we love freebies. So, I mean, you know, whatever makes it easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it goes even in just like the important point that you pointed out with, sometimes families have to be reimbursed. Like that free breakfast is a way to get, food without having that worry either.
Yes.
I do have a question from the audience. Are there accessible rental vans? Is that tough to locate them? I know you're not.
I have not had to use one yet, just because Wyatt's in a manual chair and can still transfer. And I do believe the friends of ours that are in total chairs. I believe they have been, they are able to drive to their sites.
Okay.
But so I'm not sure exactly that answer, sorry.
And I think for travel agencies, you can request that. But like what Jessica said is you need to plan a little bit in advance because they don't have that many wheelchair accessible chair or vans that can hold chairs. And maybe if you're having other stuff, same with the hotels, the handicap hotels tend to like fill up a little bit faster. So the last minute booking, if you want like a good van and a good hotel room, is that it really is the coordinators. This is something kind of not super new, but I would say in the last 3 years is that the pharmaceutical companies outsource a travel agency to do this. So we're not having to do it all, which is actually better for us. But we don't do it. So you guys need to be on top of it of like, if you need these kind of special accommodations, really build that rapport with the travel agency. Don't be afraid to ask for these things. If you need them, don't be afraid to ask for them. Say your justification and just do it in advance because there's, not that many vans. So there are so we're in Sacramento. So Sacramento's a relatively large city. So we would have it in maybe more of a rural area. It might be a little bit more difficult. So just
yeah,
do
I was going to say the same thing. Before you leave from your clinical trial visit, the best question is, when is my next one? Because sometimes you don't really know. And so like ours is not for 4 months, but I asked so I can call her, the travel agent, as soon as I get home to plan and have everything set up. So it's not all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I didn't plan it, because no one's calling you most of the time since it's now outsourced saying you don't have your travel set up yet.
Yeah, and I think it's just important too for families. I sometimes get these calls, but thinking what not plan A is, but also what plan B is, like, for accessible vehicle, where, have another option available or something that you can think of. Sometimes we get families that will get there and realize the hotel isn't accessible or the van wasn't as accessible. And I think it's again just ensuring that you're aware of these types of situations that could possibly happen too. Another one I want to jump into, and that's a little bit more tougher, is what about discontinued studies? How does that, how can, physicians, PIs, coordinators, translate that a little bit easier back to the patients? I know Jessica's been in, quite a bunch too, and I think she can share the parent perspective. And I think Erica, you can give the coordinator perspective.
You want to go first?
Sure. I think it's, I think it's a tough road for all of us that are involved in research. I think that's something I kind of said, we need to have empathy for everybody, right? So it's hard for us when we end a study, and it's hard for your physician as well. So I think it's just kind of that understanding first to know that it's not easy, right? Our message is not delivery, but what I would say for sites, what they should do is to try and, sometimes we can't be the first person because news hits and then it hits before we can, which really I wish it would be something I can control, and it's not. So once the news breaks, to have somebody say, hey, I'm so sorry, acknowledge the feelings. I feel like sometimes we all stuff our feelings, right? Acknowledge that this is hard, and we're sorry that this happened. And then I would say the next part is like, if the physician isn't available, you acknowledge that too. Say, hey, Dr. McDonald's not available right now because he's in clinic, and patients understand that, okay? That's like, they wouldn't want you to take away from another patient as well, and say, I'm going to schedule you to have a one-on-one talk with him, because then that way he's having that private time. So I would say definitely the sites need to try and reach out, and we can't change the outcome, but we can try and make it a little bit easier as far as acknowledging the hurt that's being felt, and then saying there are some other studies, we're here for you, feel free to reach out, let it sink in. Because again, I think Jessica brought it up. I love that you said take a notebook and take notes, because I think a lot of times you're hit with all of this information, and then I love that you said that you had somebody that you brought and you decompressed with them. So say, even though during the study, but talk about the failure of a study and getting those results, that's going to take some time to actually, like, I feel like as a parent, I mean, you could tell me if I'm wrong, Jessica, but like that would take some time to, like, you get the result and then it takes some time to sink in, and then you're like, wait, I have some questions now. Now I have some questions. I'm better prepared. I got this blow and now I'm ready to come back to you. Can you ask me about this and this and this and this? And I'd say for parents, and for these young men now, because now we have young men in our studies that are articulating their questions and now coordinating their own appointments with us, feel free to ask us, afterwards as well, even if it's months later. Yeah. But feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, Jessica.
No, as Danielle kind of alluded to, we had a pretty devastating blow about a year ago when our trial was canceled, and we found out on Facebook. We read it on Facebook, and that's horrible. And we know that the message has to be sent out to the people who have the money and the whole thing and all the stockholders. And but it's really hard to take that in at that minute to say, well, why did she get notified first? Why haven't I heard from my coordinator? All of these questions that, I've devoted 3 years of our life to this study, and I hear about it on Facebook. So it's hard, and it's something that I think everybody should go in prepared, and you're prepared but not ready, right? So I think that luckily we did have a great coordinator, and she did empathize with us. I believe when she called me back after she said, I'm calling you in a few minutes, I was in Sam's shopping and we're crying on the phone together, and so when you have that empathetic coordinator, it changes your whole perspective on things, and you realize that it's not your fault. But it's hard. It's really hard to process, and then to not blame yourself that your child was been taking this medication that apparently wasn't helping when you thought it was. And so I highly recommend finding someone you can decompress with, and then try to figure out why, and then try to make some change, because right now, even some of the things that trial said weren't happening, we felt it really was helping. And then try to make change by even just advocating in the space of how can we make biomarkers and things like that different, because sometimes drugs fail because we just maybe didn't have the right things that we should have been looking at. So it's extremely hard when your trial fails. It's heartbreaking. And, but luckily, since Wyatt was diagnosed in 2007, when we went from there are no drug trials to there are so many drug trials. So it's not the end of the world, even though that first few months you feel like it was. So jump back in. I said we weren't going to jump back in for like a year, and it was really 6 months, and we're back into another trial. So, you know, I think it's just hard as a parent when you go and you do these things and then it goes away, and having to like explain that to your kids really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, just like you said it, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of commitment. And, you know, I think if we can better enforce ways to, again, make more of this time more positive for everyone, it will only help in the long run. You know, does anyone else have anything else to say or share? Kind of wrapping up here, but I really appreciate you both speaking, you know, today, and just Erica, your commitment again is just, you know, really great to see, and Jessica, for all that you do and the research you know, you and your family commit to is just really amazing at the end of the day as well. Thank you everyone for attending. If there's no other questions, I think we can wrap it up. A big round of applause again for Jessica and Erica. I look forward to working with more of you throughout this year. If anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Jet Foundation, and we can connect you with Jessica and Erica as well. You know, again, please join us on another virtual webinar series. Reach out if you have a topic in mind that you think would be really great, or if you would love to be a speaker at one. We're always looking into hosting more, and just, you know, engaging our community in better ways to be, again, prepared for these type of topics and things that will be dealt along with the, you know, diagnosis of Duchenne. So again, thank you both so much. Thank you everyone for attending, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Now I can't close.